Welcome to My Therapist is Out. Each episode, we talk with a therapist from Open Space Therapy Collective or LGBT community members about mental health and building community. I'm your host, Renee Johnson, licensed therapist and founder of Open Space Therapy Collective, where we are your hub for queer and trans mental health care. As we dive into today's topic, please keep in mind that this is a mental health podcast. We will talk about sensitive and difficult issues that are not appropriate for all audiences. Please take care while listening. Welcome back to My Therapist is Out. I am really excited to have a special episode for you today. The LA Queer Events Coalition partnered with the Unique Women's Coalition in May to put on the LA Queer Events Coalition's second town hall. Open Space Therapy Collective is one of the founding members of the coalition, and we were really inspired to have this town hall in May in response to the current administration's first 100 days. So we had a panel of legal, education, and healthcare experts. It was moderated by Nick Casey from Nick Casey Presents, and this town hall started out with some amazing performances by the trans chorus and several other musicians. We're not going to have those performances in the podcast because it's an audio format, but I'd highly recommend looking them up. We will, however, have the podcast start out with a letter that Queen Shannon from the Unique Women's Coalition wrote to the current administration. It is powerful. It is a clapback. It is funny. It is poignant. And I feel like that's a really powerful way to start today's podcast, is by honoring that. And the panel really goes into what's been happening with all of the executive orders. What do they mean? What do they not mean? What places like Lambda Legal are doing in response to that. What's happening in the education center for the TGI community, what is happening in healthcare with all of the trans rollbacks and gender affirming care trying to be wiped out. So tune in, let me know what you think. We are planning on doing these town halls quarterly, and we're starting to think about what we'll do for the fall for it. So if there's something that you want to hear about, you want experts to talk about, you are curious about, DM us, email us, and we'll really take that into consideration and see how we can build that out. In the meantime, please join us for the TGI Town Hall with LA Queer Events Coalition and the Unique Women's Coalition.
So I wrote a letter to the current administration on behalf of the trans community. Oh, you're not even ready. You're not even ready for what's going to come out my mouth.
And the letter goes like this. Dear current and wicked administration, we've noticed you've been trying really hard to erase our existence. Cute Miss Orange Man. From gutting healthcare access, ignoring our safety, and rewriting policies like it's fan fiction. It's clear someone thinks they can just tap Control-Z on our lives like we're typos on a Word document. But we've been here. That's the thing. We've been here. We are here. And no amount of policy, pronoun panic, or legislative cosplay will change that. We survived being called mistakes, outcasts, experiments, and agendas. Honestly, our only agenda is equality for all. Joy, gender euphoria, and minding our own business and drinking our water. You think you can erase us on paper, but in real life, we've been thriving and surviving, creating our own spaces. affirming our own genders, our own town halls, and our own movements. You can't cancel the very culture that raised itself from the margins of glitter, grief, and gospel. So while y'all busy playing oppression Olympics with bathroom bills and budget cuts, we'll be over here, continuing life-saving care with or without your help. Building chosen families that's stronger than any system you think you can break. And looking fabulous while doing it. So in conclusion, we're not going anywhere except forward. In our heels, our boots, our binders, and our lace fronts, or however well we damn wish to show up. With resilience, resistance, and a side of petty, the TGI people of America, you wish you could erase. P.S. Your attempts at invisibility are giving budget horror cuts. Are giving budget horror movies. We prefer reality, and in reality, we always win. Thank you.
So now that we are going into our panel, I would like to introduce our panel facilitator. Nick is the founder of Nick Casey Footwear, the first gender-equal footwear and accessory brand, breaking fashion binaries with purpose and pride. They are also the creator and executive director of Equality Fashion Week. Ooh, if you have not been to Equality Fashion Week, girl, it is T. Sorry, Nick. And the first and only LGBT-focused fashion week in the U.S. We gotta give it up to shining the national spotlight on queer voices and inclusive designs. Beyond fashion, Nick has dedicated over 25 years to LGBT advocacy, serving on both the Trans Advisory Board, LGBTQ Commission for the City of West Hollywood, and contributing their leadership to organizations like Queer 26, Trans Can Work, APAIT, the LA LGBT Center, and the NGLCC's TGX initiative. Their work continues to uplift, empower, and imagine what's possible. For our moments, our industries, and ourselves, please join me in welcoming a fellow LA Queer Events Coalition member and community changemaker, Nick Casey.
To get started on the panel, the reason why we're on here is, as a trans and non-binary Asian immigrant, I found myself navigating fear, confusion, and uncertainty after the elections. And I was wondering to myself, do I update my passport now or later? I know Devin and I were talking about that. We didn't know what we were supposed to do, what would be the safest way. Can I still access my hormones? If I speak out, will I be safe? Will I be able to get back into the country if I travel? These are all the questions that I lived with, and so I know so many of you also have those very same questions, and that's why we're all here for this panel, to bring in these incredible experts to talk about that. So, to introduce everybody, I'd like to read a little bit about each of these incredible panelists. First, I'd love to introduce Jenny Pizer, the Chief Legal Officer of Lambda Legal, the oldest and largest legal advocate for the LGBTQI+ civil rights movement in the United States. Since joining Lambda Legal staff in 1996, Jenny has litigated cases and advanced public policy to end discrimination against LGBTQI+ people in employment, healthcare, education, and family law, including marriage, and against the misuse of religion and free speech rights to license discrimination. She now leads the organization's 40 attorneys and 10 paraprofessionals working nationwide from offices in Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, LA, New York, and Washington, D.C.
All right.
Welcome. Next, I'd like to introduce Devin Smith. Devin Smith completed 41 years in education, culminating as principal of Daniel Pearl Magnet High School in LAUSD, and was awarded Principal of the Year in 2019. Devin participated in various district policy developments related to safe schools, education equity, and transgender students. Welcome, Devin. Next, I'd love to introduce Melissa Marquette of APLA Health. Melissa Marquette is a proud transgender woman and the Gender Services Program Manager at APLA Health, where she has grown one of the region's most impactful programs from gender-expansive individuals supporting over 1,000 patients with care and dignity. A former X Games medalist turned advocate and certified coach, impressive, Melissa brings a fearless global perspective and over a decade of community leadership to her work. Welcome. I'd love to introduce Tracy Alexander. Tracy Alexander is the driving force behind Unique Transition, Inc., having founded the organization from her own experiences and deep compassion for the trans TGI community. As a transgender woman, Tracy has witnessed firsthand the challenges and discrimination faced by economically disadvantaged trans TGI individuals, inspiring her to take action and create a support network that addresses these unique needs. Welcome, Tracy. I know you're all incredibly busy people, so I really appreciate you making the time to come and be here to speak with us. So to get things going, because I know we're a little behind schedule, I'd love to ask Jenny the first question. Jenny, can you walk us through what this new administration has done so far in terms of laws and policies affecting trans and gender-expansive people, and what legal protections still stand in 2025 that we may not realize we still have? And to top that off, like, what are the biggest legal myths that people believe right now about their rights as TGI folks, and what's the actual truth?
So thanks, Nick, and I want to start by saying it's amazing to be here and to see you all. I've been doing this work for almost 30 years. This is the first time I'm here at Connie, and it's gorgeous, and you all are gorgeous, and I'm so delighted to be here. And so it started as a two-part question. You just made it a three-part question. So, and it's a huge field. So I will be fast, but let me start by saying that that Lambda Legal is a legal impact organization. Our work is to change the law with test cases and legislative lawyering, and we're not legal services. But we have a website, which is Lambda Legal, LAMBDALEGAL.org. And there's so much information there and on our social media. So if the things I share today and our conversation together gives you questions, please go there, get more information, and we have a legal help desk that's staffed with lawyers who are there to provide information, and you can ask questions. The link is right on the top of our homepage. You can't miss it. So I hope to inspire you with questions and an idea of where you can go to get more information. So I want to start with that. And also I want to start by saying one measure of the fear and the different negative impacts on our community members that this administration has had already in its first 4 months is that as we come to the end of this month, we've had more calls for information and help to our legal help desk in those 4 months than in all of last year.
Wow.
And a lot of those questions are about identity documents and the range of other things that are serious questions for our community. So this is real, and our lawyers are there to give information. Not to do direct representation, but to give people ideas of where they can go and what they can do, and basically to empower ourselves with information, because that's always step one. So I'll respond to your question in two parts. So first, what has the administration been doing to us? Well, so starting on day one, as I think we all know, and issuing executive orders at a rate that we've never seen before. So the so-called gender ideology executive order came out on day one, and it has a ridiculous anti-science fabricated definition of sex, dividing the world into a false binary, and then setting that as government policy. That was followed with executive orders, and folks probably are aware of a lot of this, but banning access to gender-affirming medical care where there's federal funding, aiming to kick trans folks out of the military, limiting who can participate in school sports. That's just a couple of them. Direct attacks on our community members, in particular directly against trans folks and intersex folks. And then two executive orders targeting DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility programs and services, which is a broader attack on minority populations. This is aimed to affect federally funded programs and services and the federal workforce, although the administration now seems interested in going after the private sector as well. I think of this as an attempt to define inclusion as we've understood it as exclusion. It's discrimination to try to make things fair. And I just want to say that's not what our civil rights laws say or what they mean. The folks that are familiar with Orwell, it's really like using words for their opposite. And as a result, there have already been almost 250 lawsuits filed against these executive orders. So as I say more about what the administration is setting out to do, keep in mind that it is being challenged because most of what they're doing is not legal. So the other things that they're doing are efforts to limit access to accurate federal ID documents, especially passports, visas, and work permission. Directives to transfer the housing of trans folks who are in federal custody to the wrong type of housing facilities. Termination of millions and millions of dollars in federal grants that have been issued to fund research about LGBTQ plus people and people living with HIV, our lives, our health needs. Termination of funding for domestic and global nonprofit organizations that serve our community members, community centers, health centers, in the US, but also around the world. I didn't put in the bio, but I'm a proud member of the Outright International Board of Directors, and Outright re-grants funding to community-based organizations all around the world in places where often the recipients of those grants are the only LGBTQ plus serving organizations in the country. And the Trump administration cutting off our funding has required termination of more than 130 grants to organizations in 40 countries. So needless to say, this is all quite devastating. There will be a positive point I will get to in a minute. But it's a very, very serious landscape. And to make it somewhat worse, this administration is also now going after the major law firms that work with Lambda Legal and our partner legal organizations in this movement and those fighting for environmental justice, racial justice, immigrant rights, and a range of other things. So this is not just trying to defund all of our movements, but to intimidate us and then to make it harder to have legal help. Well, guess what? A couple of those law firms have made deals with the administration. They're not looking so great. Their junior lawyers are leaving, and the ones that are fighting back are getting the clients. So there's a bunch of reasons to think that the resistance is rising. So what has not changed, and I'll do this quickly, I don't mean to turn this into a whole afternoon lecture. A whole lot of things are not changed by these assaults. Start with state law rights. Those of us here in California you know, it's not perfect here, but we have a darn good set of non-discrimination laws, comprehensive, and courts that understand them and enforce them. We have friendly family law rules in this state that protect family relationships in all the different ways that we create families. And state laws that govern identity documents issued by the state. So that's birth certificates, allowing folks to go to court, to state court, to change a name, to update and correct a gender marker, and to get accurate driver's licenses. So these are, living here in California, we're much more protected than people living in some other parts of the country. And then the big picture is that this president does not have the power with his pen to rewrite the Constitution or federal statutes. We have constitutional rights. The ones that Lambda Legal is using a lot in the cases we're fighting include the First Amendment free speech rights, due process rights, and equal protection rights. And the bottom line is that the president and his administration, that's the executive branch, and the point is that they're supposed to execute the laws that Congress passes. That includes rights against discrimination. The Supreme Court in 2020 issued a really, really important decision recognizing that discrimination based on transgender status or sexual orientation, that's forms of sex discrimination. And there are laws, there are statutes on the books protecting us against sex discrimination in employment, housing, education, healthcare, and credit. Those are protections that exist, and the Trump administration might disagree, but that's what the law says. And those are all laws that we at Lambda Legal and other organizations are able to enforce on behalf of people who face discrimination. So there have been nearly 250 lawsuits against these executive orders, as I said, an enormous amount of success in the trial level. Some of the court orders blocking the administration have been undone on appeal, but the cases are continuing. So if you see a headline that says, oh, the Supreme Court overruled or blocked that injunction, it doesn't mean the case is over. It means that we haven't been able to pause the executive order while we litigate, but those cases continue and they're not over. So I guess I'll just finish by saying at Lambda Legal we have filed 5 cases so far. We have succeeded in getting a court order to block the executive order that attempts to block access to medical care. It's a nationwide injunction blocking that executive order. We filed about passports. We have sued about the military ban. And we have sued to challenge the 2 DEI executive orders. And there's another case that's probably going to be filed on Monday that I can't tell you what it's about, but watch the news. So there's a lot going on, and there's actually a lot of good news.
Thank you. I know for me, it's like watching the news every day and like hearing the news. It's nerve-wracking. So it's nice to like hear it from someone that I trust, you know. So thank you for that. Speaking of being in California and being very fortunate to be here, I myself am a patient of APLA Health. So Melissa, I actually would love to ask you the next question, which is, given the current bans and restrictions, how can TGI folks continue to access gender-affirming healthcare, including hormones and mental health services? And what are our options in California? And what about the folks that are in less supportive states?
Yeah, thank you. So here in California, we have state laws. We are protected. They are going to keep providing those services. At APLA Health, we're always here to provide those services. Even the Children's Hospital is still providing those services. St. John's is providing those services. The LA LGBTQ Center is providing those services. And then there's outside sources you can get online, like Plume Health, Folks Health, and the Queer Doc. There's several resources that are out there, and we're really not going to stop. I mean, really the only thing that can stop us from serving the community is funding. But when you talk about funding, what we do need to do, if it comes to that, is the state is going to decide, do we keep funding trans healthcare? It's not going to come from the federal level. Yes, federal funds may dry up, but the state can decide, hey, it doesn't really cost that much to fund healthcare for trans individuals.
Right.
I mean, in LA County, if you take the people that come in and out of care and get their gender affirming surgeries and move on in life and become happy and thrive, we're only talking about $2 to $2.5 million per year just to fund that. That is not a lot of money. So if we do have to come to this point where we have to fund the funds, we will try and fund the funds.
Let's talk about education. Devin, we've seen a wave of attacks on queer and trans students, book bans, and anti-DEI education laws. From your experience in education, what can parents, guardians, and even young people themselves do to stay safe, affirmed, and informed?
There's never an easy question there. Like, this is so involved. I'll try to be concise in my comments, but the one thing I will say when I was able to prepare for today and really think about these questions, the first thing that came to my mind was, how do we keep kids safe? Number one, whatever that has to look like for that student, they have to be kept safe on the campus. And that may mean giving up some thoughts about how they present in school, where they're going to present in school, what spaces they're going to take up in school, because at the end of the day, as not only a teacher, but as a longtime educator and principal, I could never promise a student that I could keep them safe no matter where they were on campus. I couldn't. I can't have a faculty that can keep them all safe, nor can I have supervisory staff or anything like that. So when students came to school, or if you have students in your community right now that are going to school, they have to look at their existence on campus from the lens of, how do I stay safe? So some of the things that they need to do, or you as adults can help them to look at, is one, can they identify members of their faculty, anybody, who presents in a way that says, you are safe in my company. If you need a safe spot, you can come here, no questions asked. You can land in my cafeteria, you can land in the library, you can land in the textbook room with the textbook clerk. Students have to understand that yes, there are laws in place, and yes, they are supposed to be safe in school. But we all know every day we turn on the news and there may be another incident of another moment that some student or some entity decided to take action on themselves that is extremely dangerous and extremely violent. And I can tell you firsthand that there are students in this community that are often targeted for bullying, for teasing, for ostracizing, and unfortunately that can come from any level. It can come from a kid, it can come from someone's parent, it could come from a teacher. I'll say it again, it can come from a teacher, an administrator. So students, they need to look around, like when you enter a classroom, is there messaging in that classroom that says you're safe? That you're all welcome here, that I embrace diversity, I see you. If there isn't, and some of our teachers are pretty sterile about what they put in their classroom, I'm the math teacher and only math goes up on the walls, and that's okay. But there's usually little indicators in a classroom that say that students and young people exist in this space. And they come from all walks of life, and they have all kinds of backgrounds and interests and those kinds of things. Students need to identify safe places on a campus. Is there a place on a campus that is kind of isolated? It's not really seen, it's not really visible. They really shouldn't be. As much as they may find comfort in having private space,
it's really not a safe space for a student who is maybe experiencing some bullying or teasing that they now kind of cordon themselves off. If, you know, sit along the bench of the PE field, but be around other people. It's really, really important. In terms of DEI, and Jenny touched on this and Nick touched on this, I will say that we are very lucky here in California in that we do have laws here, so correct me, Jenny, if I overstep my space. The federal government sets legislation that relates to education and ed law, right? And then it goes from there to the state, and the state Department of Education then writes ed codes. From there, a school district or a school board then writes policies that implement the federal law and the state ed codes. If you have students or if you have children or family members that are going to go to school, what is your state ed code? Well, here in California, they're pretty specific and they're pretty protective of all students in terms of discrimination, in terms of gender discrimination, any of those kinds of things. The ed codes here are pretty rigid, even to the point where there was a case brought in Chino Hills where the school board ruled that a teacher had to out a child to a parent. They had to inform a parent or family if the child came to school and wanted to present with a different gender, a different pronoun, a different name. And that right now, I think it has not been fully litigated, but it has, Chino Hills has been told that they cannot implement that right now, that there is a abeyance?
Students have privacy rights. Students have privacy rights.
Correct. And that's here in California. Understanding how this works, in terms of your local school boards, your local school board, whatever that is your closest step to what's going on in your local schools. Your school board is making decisions. And I know it's hard to go to school board meetings. Trust me, I know it's hard to go to school board meetings. But you can't be blind to that. If you have young people in your life that are going to school, you must know what is going on with your local school board. You must know who is running for a seat on your school board. You need to vet them. You need to know what is their background, what are their beliefs. You need to campaign for those school board members that are going to be allies to your student, your cousin, your niece, your nephew, whatever. Those are the closest things that you will have access to in terms of making sure that your school district is keeping your student that you're connected with in a safe space. Period. It's the school board.
One thing I just want to add is that the California law, as it is in the ed code, is explicitly protective of LGBTQ plus students in a way that at the federal level it's just by court decisions. So again, California law is clearer and better and more protective, and that's partly from members of our community and former supervisor and state senator Sheila Kuehl, who got those protections explicitly in state law. So, depend on the fact that we have good laws, but they're only as good as people know that they exist. So sharing that information is really important.
Next, Tracy, I wanted to ask you from kind of the on-the-ground community support angle is, your organization supports folks in some of the most vulnerable parts of our community, including Black and brown trans folks, and those navigating housing, employment, and survival. What are you seeing on the ground right now, and how are people finding resilience and care?
Sheesh. We find resilience and care in gathering. We like to gather, we like to chew, we have discussions, we read, we laugh. That's where we get our resilience from with one another. So that's what we do. We gather, we laugh, we talk, We eat a lot of that. And we find resilience and care in that.
And what are the most urgent needs you're seeing right now, and how can the community and allies step up in real, tangible ways?
Allies, that word is used loosely. Because I think that more people that say they're allies need to put more action behind it.
Come on. Yes.
By saying that they're allies or telling us that they're allies and even volunteering, we need some coins too.
Yeah.
Help us with our missions. That's how they can show up and show out.
Yes.
Next, Melissa, I'd like to ask you, what should folks know about insurance coverage right now, and where can people turn if their access is threatened?
If your access is threatened, definitely let us know, because we can get you in touch with legal representation to make sure you do get your coverage back. Sometimes it does happen. We have trans individuals that may be having private insurance, and then the employer switches insurance programs, and they can no longer get the care that they once were getting. We can direct our patients to the right resources to make sure that that happens. If you don't have health care, go to a healthcare facility that has enrollment specialists. At APLA Health, at all of our clinics, we have enrollment and specialists that can get you into health insurance. There's lots of different choices out there. I will say it right now, one of the best that's out there for low-income individuals is LA Care. LA Care is still looking at expanding their network and trying to bring in new providers, which gives me a little hope because it makes me see that they're not giving up, that they're going to still be in this fight together. So if you don't have healthcare insurance, go to a healthcare facility, come to APLA Health. Will help you get insurance. Now, when you're talking about undocumented individuals, I would say get health care immediately. Because Newsom just recently announced that probably starting in the fall, sometime next year, they may roll that back. Thank you. And this was, for 18 and under, if you're undocumented, there was health insurance. If you're 65 and over, there was health insurance. This year was the first year that they rolled it out to all undocumented individuals. So hopefully we can keep fighting for that.
But Jenny, I want to ask you, what can people do right now to protect their legal identity, such as name and identity? What should they be cautious of?
Yes, so questions about identity documents has been the #1 area of questioning coming into our legal help desk. And the basic takeaway is that state law should not be affected by what's happening at the federal level. So state driver's license, being able to update to have that corrected, and to update and correct birth certificates and other identity documents. If they're state documents, you should be fine. Passports, there was a lawsuit brought by the ACLU that got a court order blocking what the Trump administration has been doing. I mean, they've been doing a bunch of mischief. I mean, people submit their passport to be renewed or updated, and it comes back with the correct gender marker reverted back to a prior incorrect gender marker. I mean, you're just messing with people. Yeah, I mean, so I would say that's where the caution is, because there's a court order blocking them from doing that, and that case will then be turned into a nationwide class action, so it should be okay. But honestly, do we trust them?
No.
Not particularly at this point. And the cases go up on appeal, and then things change, and so the injunctions are really, really important as we get them. And to realize that we're right now in a state of such, I don't know, should I say flux? Such a state of uncertainty and change, it's all contested. And so I would say be cautious. If you don't need to travel internationally, if your passport is still fine and you don't need to renew it, just hold on to it if it's accurate now. And this is particularly important, of course, for people who are living in states that are really messing with people in terms of state ID. For a lot of people, the passport has been the accurate document that you can always use. And for people here in California, if there's reasons why it's difficult to get the new Real IDs, and yeah, because Real ID is a problem for some folks to get, and the passport is okay for traveling, but if you're having trouble with the passport, that can be multiple types of problems. And we're seeing it in particular for people in Texas, in Florida, and in some other states where the leaders of the states are just messing with people. And some of what they're doing is just to scare people, I will say. And I'm saying this partly because we all have friends living in other places. In Texas, for example, they're talking about reverting people's driver's license, the gender marker, back to what it might have been originally. And it looks like they don't have the records to do that. They don't have the machinery to do it. They're just messing with people. And it is a tactic, and we're seeing it. So my message to folks is, we're here, we're together, we're fighting back. Don't take everything that they say seriously. Check with legal experts who actually really know what's going on. But here in California, most of the machinery is working just fine, and if you can rely on those documents, you're probably going to be fine.
And I wanted to add too, if you are a Medi-Cal recipient or you are getting CalFresh, anything like that, you have a fee waiver, so you do not have to pay for name and gender change. You do not need an attorney to do name and gender change paperwork. If you have paperwork or need help with paperwork, come to APLA Help. We'll be happy to show you how to do the paperwork. It takes pretty much about 10 minutes to fill out. You take it to the courthouse, you turn it in, voila, it's done. It is very, very easy.
Thank you. And if you need APLA's information, there's a table right in the hallway that has a bunch of brochures from APLA Health.
So APLA is amazing, and the LA LGBT Center also has lawyers helping folks with this kind of thing. So multiple community resources that we really appreciate.
Just a couple more questions. Tracy, where can people go for help right now if they feel unsafe and unhoused?
Right here at the Connie Norman Transgender Empowerment Center. Like you heard earlier, there's nothing but trans-led organizations here, and we're here to offer services to anybody that walks through the door. You don't have to be TGI. From me at UTI, we help anybody that comes through the door.
Just go to where there's community. Go to these safe spaces. Go where there's trans representation. You know, I think it was a couple weeks ago, we had a 14-year-old that was kicked out of their home. Thankfully, they found somebody on the streets that their dog had some rainbow colors on it, and asked them, hey, I just got kicked out of my house, where can I go? Well, they came to APLA Help. It was a long day and a long evening, but we were able to actually get that person rehoused in their home. So these things happen, and we don't want children to leave their homes. We want to see and try and make it work, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But there's so many organizations out there throughout LA County that you can direct people to. You're the people here that can also help direct these people to find the resources that they need. And the great thing about the local LA networks is we talk with each other. We know what resources they have. I know what resources we have. And we don't try to recreate the wheel. If somebody's doing it, let's pass it over to them. Let's work together to uplift our community.
Just say, again, the Lambda Legal Help Desk, where they are another source of these same suggestions and referrals. It's the same idea of people collecting information, and it's there to provide to people when they call with questions.
Devin, as someone who led a school through complex and changing times, what advice would you give to educators and those who, administrators, like folks who work with other folks who want to support their TGI students or constituents or patients or not, and feel like restricted by state or district policies? I gave you these questions in advance, so I have
So here's the rub on this kind of a question. You know, teachers and counselors and administrators in school sites are credentialed, right? So it's a legal document that binds them to act in ways that they must stay within the boundaries of those laws to protect their licensing. If they step outside those kinds of laws or protections, they are at great risk to lose their credential, be fired, lose their job. And no teacher that wants to help a kid is any good being fired or being removed from their campus. So even if they're in a lengthy process to prove that what they did wasn't wrong or outside of the bounds of their job, if they're pulled from that school and sat in district housing for months on end while the case makes its way through or proving whatever occurred or didn't occur, those students now are greatly affected by that because that safe ally is gone from their campus. I will say that as a teacher, and when I was working as a teacher and I led the Project 10, which that's way back. You don't even hear that anymore. You hear about alliances and gay straight alliances and those kinds of things. I took a lot of risks with the kids on my campus because I just felt like they needed someone, and I was kind of willing to take that risk. I paid some prices for it, but in the end, I really still felt like I did the right thing at the end. I could sleep at night, I had a conscience. When I became a principal, that rose to a whole new level of risk that I could take and the spotlight that could be put on me if something went awry. And there were two major cases at Daniel Pearl that did occur while I was the principal there, both of which took a long time to get litigated. One I probably still have some residual anxiety about, that what I went through as a principal to try to prove that what was going on this campus was not what was being presented by this one particular student. And this school unfortunately did receive a lot of really negative attention around it, which was kind of shocking to me, being a member of the queer community, and I'm being targeted by a nationally known attorney for not having a safe school for queer kids. It was kind of like, what are you talking about? Anyway, teachers can put teacher shelf library materials in their classroom. They can put books in their classroom. We're talking California. We're not talking Florida. In Florida, when the DEI thing started, Governor DeSantis made all student or teacher libraries in their classrooms be boxed up and sent to Tallahassee to be reviewed. Every book was reviewed by a media specialist, and that media specialist decided whether or not that book could be returned to that teacher's personal library. If the media specialist decided that it crossed the line, had inappropriate things, whatever, they were confiscated, and that teacher lost that book. We don't do that here in California, thank goodness. Another thing that teachers can do, or counselors, or even parents, make donations to your school library. Send them books periodically. Go on Amazon and order a title and send it to your school library. It will show up in the school library because librarians have no money for books. They're desperate for books. No principal gives the school librarian money for books because they can't afford it. They've got other things like math textbooks, science textbooks, desks that need to be replaced, just other stuff. The library is very much in need of any school library, elementary all the way up through your public high school. Those are the kinds of things. Bringing speakers on campus, having a speaker come into a health class, have a speaker come in and talk in your English class, some writer that is writing interesting material for young people. These are all ways that people within the school setting can really help our queer kids see that they are welcome and exist and they're valued as a member of the school campus.
Also, don't order it from Amazon. Buy from your local bookstore.
If there's one in your area, certainly.
Yes. I'm going to ask one final question for the whole group before we go to the Q&A. What do you wish more people, especially allies and other boards, understood about the challenges that TGI service providers, or just TGI service folks, face? And how can we build stronger, more sustainable networks of support around all of what you do? Yeah, let's start with Tracy.
I would say that they should know that this, first of all, it's not easy. This is hard to wake up every day and try and, advocating for different situations and going out, outreaching and things like that is hard. We need more allies to put their boots to the ground with us. That's what we need. We need more allies to get out with us, show up, show out, and put more action, like I said, behind their words. That's just the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Suffer just like you suffer.
Mm-hmm.
I feel pain just like you feel pain. And the hope is that I know how to deal with it. And sometimes I can, but sometimes I can't. But I do know good self-healing practices to keep myself there for my patients and clients. The one thing I say, if you are trans, non-binary, somewhere in the gender-expansive spectrum, be kind to the people that are servicing you. Be kind. So many times we get the brunt of it, and that's okay, but you have to understand that we're here trying to serve you. We can't make magic happen, but we try. And sometimes we do actually make magic happen. So just be patient with the providers. Know that we are actually here to do the right thing, and we always will do the right thing.
We also need to see more people that look like us in these workplaces that provide services to us. There's been so many times where I've walked into an agency that says, oh, we provide services to this population, our community, but I don't see anyone that looks like us. It's like, where are they getting their information from? So I would like to see more people in these workplaces, providing services to us, but they need to look like us.
In terms of your local community school efforts and so forth, I'm retired, very happily retired, and it's been a while since I've actually been on the school campuses, but I can tell you that faculty that I've known, colleagues that I've known over the years, still reach out to me, they still call and ask. They don't know what to do about a certain situation with a kid, they don't have a principal that understands, they don't have a counselor on the campus, they don't know resources. So again, when you look at, and teachers are often, and even principals are oftentimes the brunt of some allegation that may not even be founded. And it's very difficult when teachers and principals or counselors are thrown into this media spotlight for something that was an allegation that really was unfounded. So be kind in the sense of when and if you hear these things, remember, an allegation can be made about anything. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is true. And what I will say to you is, rarely do we ever see the end result in the media after a case has gone all over the local news, and then it gets turned back, it gets found out that nothing really was happening, but the media never covers that anymore. So that teacher, that administrator's face stays aligned with that terrible story, and they never get the recognition when it's found out to be not true. So be kind when you hear these things. Keep in mind, this is an allegation. It doesn't necessarily mean that it occurred.
So I think this may be not exactly responding to the way you put the question, but one of the things I find myself doing, and a number of my Lambda Legal colleagues find themselves doing, is talking to members of our broader LGBTQ+ community. In particular, older, white, cisgender gay men who have resources, that the attacks that are targeting right now, trans, intersex, non-binary folks, and folks of color, these are the same opponents, the same types of attacks that were really, really connected at the root here.
Come on, Jamie.
Folks absolutely have to have a stake in fighting back fiercely against what's happening now. Because we've seen this in our history repeatedly, that our opponents will pick a group of people within our community that they perceive as being vulnerable to slander and othering, and get political points out of it. The good side of this, of what history tells us, is that when we work against it, when we call out the lies and we organize, it ceases to be effective as a political tool. And what I believe in my heart and I see happening, we just have to make it happen that much faster, is that when we all work together to do that education, it will be true of the current attacks too. And on the other side of this horrible, hateful, cruel period, trans, gender-expansive, non-binary, intersex folks are going to be seen and safer and embraced and celebrated as has never been true in our history before. And that's the day that we're all working for.
Thank you all so much. If I can share what I always think about, like what I wish other people not within our community would recognize, is that, you know, I bleed, I cry, I sweat just like them, and I love and I laugh just like them. So I hope that, you know, the more people that we can educate, even though it's not our job to educate them, but for those of us who have the bandwidth, who have the emotional bandwidth, keep going. And like, for every conversation I have with an Uber driver talking about my identity, I know that it paves the way for the next person that gets in that car and that's going to be treated a little bit better.
Come on.
And I think if we just keep doing that, then we're going to get somewhere. So thank you all so much.
Hello. First question, what should trans and NB folks do to prepare best for their real IDs?
Real IDs, make sure you have your birth certificate. And really, I mean, if you've had your previous driver's license, the change isn't so great. But definitely make sure you have your birth certificate.
Yeah, you need that identity document to, and if you have a valid passport, I mean, the Real ID is issued by the state. So the state is not the one that's creating the big problem. There are requirements of the Real ID that are difficult if you haven't been able to update the underlying identity document, such as the birth certificate.
Right.
So that can be difficult for members of our community here in California who were born in a state that doesn't allow the correcting of the document. But if you were born here, or in a state that allows you to do it, then you have what you need. And if you have an accurate passport, the state will respect it. The problem right now is the State Department and passports.
Okay, great. Is there anything we should be telling our trans children they should be aware of on how they show up or not on social media with this administration?
Good question.
I was just gonna say, social media is a problem in itself.
Right.
And if you were young, if I could do it all over again, I just would have avoided social media.
Yeah. Like she said.
Right.
Yeah, I have a thought. It is the hardest thing to have children, young people that are using social media, and honestly and truly, their parents have no idea what their username is, what their password is. They have no idea what kids are putting on social media. And not just what my kid is putting on, but what are other kids putting on my child's social media in comments? Which then creates such psychological damage because it is a faceless way to really hurt a kid. And it is very difficult to dig down deep enough to find out who the perpetrators are because kids in 5 seconds have a new username. So if you have young people that are under your supervision or whatever, you're a trusted auntie, whatever, see if you can get their username and password and really follow what are they doing on social media and who's commenting on it.
And not only for kids, I highly suggest, if you haven't had a chance, I accidentally found 3 fake accounts of mine, like this last week. It was by accident. I was trying to show somebody, how to follow me, and all of a sudden there were all these accounts with my name and my photos and my posts. And it was really scary because I was like, why would anyone do that? I don't understand. So if you haven't had a chance, I'd just say, do a little search for yourself, make sure no one's doing that to you. And if you do find those accounts, report it, get your friends to report it right away, because it's not right, and you don't know if that person's using your name and likeness to hurt other people.
Did my 18-year-old kid rush to or wait to change their name?
Do it. What's a rush? What's a rhyme? What's a rush?
Yeah,
I'm just reading the question.
I can clarify. They want to change their name, and they've asked many times, but then every time I pull out the documents, they don't. And so I can tell that they're on the fence. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I can tell that they're on the fence, and I guess I'm, of course, flabbergasted as we are all, and taking in a lot of what you're saying about the current situation. They have their passport and driver's license in their dead name, but they want to change to their name, and so I'm as a parent, I'm just like, I don't know to push or to wait. Legally, if it's gonna get worse, that's what I mean. Legally, is it good for them to change their name? Like in terms of red tape, is it gonna get worse for the process? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not emotionally, not psychologically.
No, so the state.
Because you said the state.
The state mechanisms are not controlled by whatever.
And
the
passports should
administration
be
is
fine
doing.
too?
But no, passports right now is a big question mark, because this administration has been refusing to make those changes, and for people who had already changed it, changing it back to the wrong gender marker, and so that really messes with people. So I think it depends what the person is needing to do, because they can change the state documents, then they will have state and federal documents that are not aligned. Are they likely to need to travel? If they need to travel leaving the country, that could be sort of
More complicated.
But I would not recommend trying to change the passport now. The issue is more gender markers and not so much names, but still, if there's state and federal documents that are not agreeing,
Right.
that, again, the passport is more of a problem if the person needs to travel. But we don't know what the Supreme Court is gonna do is the problem, right? We're having good things happening at the trial level in the good circuits, it's fine, and the Supreme Court is trying to figure out whether they believe in the rule of law or not.
I appreciate it.
Sound like that baby ain't ready though.
One more question. Okay. How can TGI individuals educate themselves in knowing their rights in the workplace and policies that protect against discrimination?
Jamie.
Go to our website, lambdalegals.org. There's information there. And call our legal help desk, and because the lawyers at the legal help desk, family law related issues and employment related issues have consistently for years been the areas of top concern, questions, and needs. So my colleagues who answer those phones, or it's actually not phones at this point, it's but then there's a call back. They get to talk to a person and ask their questions, and these are areas that they deal with a lot. There are other websites with good information too. The EEOC website used to be a great place for information, less so at the moment, I would just say.
And I would add, if you are experiencing discrimination, document. You need to document all of this, because even if you believe you have a case, without documentation, you do not have a case.
Yeah, so if we didn't get to your question, our panelists are still here for a little bit longer afterwards, so please feel free to maybe ask them directly. I'd like to continue the rest of our program because we do have a lot more amazing performers coming up. So thank you, Tracy, Melissa, Devin, Jenny.
Hello, my name is PJ at They Them Pronouns, and a queer moment of joy is the amazing town hall we had today, the LA Queer Events Coalition. This was our second town hall, and it was a major success from all the incredible people and supporters who've come together to really protect our community that's being less than protected by other folks. So it's important that we work together. And it brings me so much joy, and I think it brings a lot of the people here a lot of joy. So stay tuned for more awesome events from the LA Queer Events Coalition. And thank you. I'm joyful.
Hi, my name is Jackie. Pronouns are she, her. And my moment of queer joy is every dyke day, because I love the bitches.
Thanks for joining us. If you're in California and looking for a therapist, visit our website at openspacetherapycollective.com and book a free intro call with one of our therapists. If you're enjoying My Therapist Is Out, please rate, review, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Do you know somebody who could use a little extra dose of queer community? Send them one of your favorite episodes of My Therapist Is Out and help our collective grow one listen at a time. My Therapist Is Out is an open space therapy collective podcast, and our podcast editing is done by Rachel Peltzer and Smash and Grab Studio. We'd love to hear from you about today's topic, so email us at info@openspacetherapycollective.com. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Open Space Therapy Collective. Thanks for listening.